With Russian artillery support wiped out and their positions exposed, Ukrainian forces moved in to fully reclaim Uspenivka. Precision strikes on key Russian firepower paved the way for a swift and decisive assault, forcing the last defenders to retreat in disarray in Pokrovsk direction. Euromaidan Press media outlet reports that the goal of the Ukrainian forces in this area is to recapture the village of Uspenivka fully. From here, Ukrainians are attempting to build momentum and push further to the east, setting conditions to take Russians into a 6-kilometer wide cauldron between the Ukrainian-controlled settlements of Uspenivka and Pischane. As Russians heavily rely on their fire support, the Ukrainian forces planned to deny and destroy the artillery and armored vehicle support of the Russian troops in Uspenivka. This would allow them to set conditions to push Russians even further and tighten the noose around the Russian effort southwest of Pokrovsk. Ukraine's key advantage is the narrow river branch between Uspenivka and Novovasylivka. With the temperatures at Pokrovsk warming up and the ice melting, this left a single bridge as the only viable crossing point between the two settlements. This allowed Ukrainians to concentrate their fire and surveillance on this checkpoint, track Russian troop movements, identify reinforcement numbers, and pinpoint their strongholds within the village. Euromaidan Press says that due to intense Ukrainian drone strikes on the Russian ground lines of communication, Russians could only deploy infantry into the heavy fighting here, usually in squads of up to 2 soldiers each, which accumulated in Novovasylivka and then deployed to Uspenivka under cover of night. Due to this lack of armored support, the Russian forces are trying to compensate by shelling the Ukrainian positions more intensely with artillery shelling. The high rate of Russian fire made their artillery pieces easier to detect and engage, allowing Ukrainian drone operators to quickly relay their exact positions to counter-battery units and kamikaze drone operators. Euromaidan Press says that the Ukrainian forces continue to devastate Russian artillery positions, striking multiple pieces despite Russian efforts to conceal them. Among the key targets was a rare and powerful 240mm Tulip self-propelled mortar, one of only 40 in active Russian service. The Tulip is specifically designed to destroy heavily fortified positions, indicating that Ukrainian forces were well entrenched in the area. The Russian inability to dislodge them with conventional artillery likely forced them to deploy such a scarce and specialized weapon only for it to be detected and destroyed. Even when Russian artillery was hidden inside damaged buildings, Ukrainian drone operators successfully identified and struck them. Overall, the Ukrainian precision strikes on the Russian thermobaric artillery, Tulip heavy mortars, and standard barrel artillery diminished their fire support, exposing a window of opportunity for the Ukrainians to counterattack and regain control of their positions in Uspenivka. With Ukrainians now in a much better position, they could possibly cut off the Russian forces on the western flank of Pokrovsk through a pincer maneuver in tandem with their efforts at Pischane and Shevchenko.
The State Duma declared that Russia will not agree to a 30-day truce, as the United States could rearm Ukraine during this period. Deputy Viktor Sobolev emphasized that the truce is absolutely unacceptable. He believes that the ceasefire would only benefit the armed forces of Ukraine. Sobolev considers the temporary ceasefire absolutely unacceptable. According to him, Russian dictator Vladimir Putin also spoke about this. The Russian MP repeated that the ceasefire is only beneficial to Ukraine, as in 30 days it will be able to regroup, strengthen its troops and receive additional drones. This only plays into the hands of Ukrainians. This is how many drones were attacked at night today, we don't need it at all, Sobolev added. Against the backdrop of US-Ukraine negotiations in Saudi Arabia, Russian Foreign Ministry Press Secretary Maria Zakharova stated that Moscow's position will not be formed abroad, so news from Russia should be monitored. Zakharova stated that the main news will allegedly come from Moscow, therefore, she believes that one should follow the news not from Jeddah, but from the Russian capital. The formation of the position of the Russian Federation does not occur abroad due to some agreements or efforts of some parties. The formation of the position of the Russian Federation occurs within the Russian Federation, said the representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry. At the talks in Jeddah on March 11, Ukraine expressed its readiness to accept the U.S. proposal to immediately introduce a temporary 30-day ceasefire. It can be extended by mutual agreement of the parties, subject to acceptance and simultaneous implementation by the Russian Federation. The representatives of both countries highly praised the bravery of the Ukrainian people in defending their nation and agreed that now is the time to initiate the process of establishing a lasting peace. The Ukrainian delegation once again expressed the deep gratitude of the Ukrainian people to President Trump, the U.S. Congress, and the American people for enabling significant progress toward peace. Ukraine has declared its readiness to accept the U.S. proposal for the immediate implementation of a temporary 30-day ceasefire, which may be extended by mutual agreement, provided it is accepted and simultaneously implemented by the Russian Federation. The United States will inform Russia that reciprocity on its part is crucial to achieving peace. In addition, the Ukrainian and U.S. teams discussed the importance of humanitarian efforts as part of the peace process, particularly during the aforementioned ceasefire, including the exchange of prisoners of war, the release of detained civilians, and the return of forcibly displaced Ukrainian children. High-stakes talks between senior delegations from Ukraine and the United States on how to end Kiev's three-year war with Moscow opened in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday. According to Associated Press, the talks reflect a new diplomatic push after an unprecedented argument erupted during President Volodymyr Zelensky's February 28 visit to the White House. Ukrainian officials told the Associated Press on Monday that they will propose a ceasefire covering the Black Sea, which would bring safer shipping, as well long-range missile strikes that have hit civilians in Ukraine, and the release of prisoners. Journalists briefly entered the room to see the two sides as the meeting got underway at a luxury hotel in the Red Sea port city of Jeddah.
했어.